tense. Good afternoon, everyone. And fun.
We are raising our guidance.
Great success, success, success. Great success, success, success means great profit, great profit, great profit. Mediocre success still means profit. Good afternoon, everyone. Still means profit. Still means. Good afternoon, everyone. Profit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Wrestlenomics Radio. I'm Bryan Danielson, broadcasting live and on demand from Buffalo, New York, where today is Sunday, December 26th, 2021. I'm joined from my immediate south, the everyman of Wrestlenomics, Chris Gullo. Hello.
Hello, it's great to be here, and we have a huge show for you as we're gonna kind of talk about the biggest stories of 2021, and that's going to actually include WWE and Peacock making the agreement that they did, the return to live touring. Is it the end of a Ring of Honor? The return of CM Punk to professional wrestling and signing with AEW. Kristina Salen resigning from her position, and the end of the Wednesday Night War, and much more. Also, the launch NXT 2.0. Plus, we're going to discuss, can the wrestling business learn something from Succession and Yellowstone, and much more here on this December 26th edition.
Have you started watching Succession? I believe you expressed some plans, intention to watch Succession.
I haven't got to yet, but I have started watching Yellowstone.
Really?
Yes.
What do you think of
Mostly
Yellowstone?
Because the prequel really caught my interest, but I feel like I have to watch the regular show before I watch the prequel.
What is the prequel?
It's called 1883, and it's
I saw an
really
ad for that.
Yeah, on like the ranching industry, like in the midst of Western expansion, which I'm very fascinated from that era, and I've read a lot of books and watched a lot of documentaries on it. So
it's got what's that? Sam Elliott is in that.
Yes,
like that's his entire career. He's just in westerns, I think.
For the most part, I mean, he plays a rancher or a cowboy. Mm-hmm. It's pretty much what he does.
Or he talks to Big Lebowski.
Yeah, that might be the only like non-Western movie I could think of that he was in.
But he's still like in a cowboy hat, and he does the opening monologue with like a tumbleweed. He's cast because he's a Western guy.
Yeah, he orders a sarsaparilla.
That's right. So it's the day after Christmas now. How was your Christmas, Chris Gullo?
My Christmas was good. We're still kind of continuing a celebration. I have family my wife's family coming over after we record today. So
I thought you were going to say they're in the house right now.
they're sitting on the other side of the door. They want to know everything about Wrestlenomics.
Yes. Are they from out of town?
No, it's her cousin and his family, and they live in Lockport though. So if you live in Buffalo, that's pretty.
That's out of town. Yeah.
Yeah, that's out of town.
That's a different continent, basically. Did you get any wrestling related gifts or other interesting gifts?
I did not actually. A lot of comic book related gifts, but I actually didn't get any wrestling related gifts this year.
I got a shirt that says Puroresu, All Japan Pro Wrestling.
That's awesome. I know that's right up your alley.
I forget the name of the artist. I got a huge poster of all these cartoon drawings of like hundreds and hundreds of wrestlers. People listening might know what I'm talking about. this artist from the UK.
Is it Hal Haney?
I don't think so.
Okay, I like Hal Haney's pieces. They're really cool.
I forget the name of the artist. I think he's done similar big portraits for other sports and things like that. Yeah, there's even like every wrestler you can imagine, isn't it? There's even like Mae Young giving birth to a hand and Mark Henry there. It's like every famous scene in wrestling history.
That sounds really cool.
But I think that's all I got as far as wrestling related gifts. Yes. Okay.
I'll probably be buying some wrestling related stuff with the Amazon gift cards I have, though.
Did you get a lot of Amazon gift cards?
A lot of Amazon gift cards. Yes.
Yes. We're stalling because I thought that we would start at 11, and then I realized, wait a minute, we planned to start connecting at 11, and then I was like, well, maybe I should push it to 11:30 or 11:15, but it turned out we were ready at 11, because Chris Gullo got ready so quickly. So we are going to talk about all of the year's events in wrestling in 2021. The biggest stories of 2021. And I think if you look back on 2021, it really was, Nick Khan was around since August 2020 in an official capacity for WWE. This was really the year of the Khans, you could say. No relation, Tony and Nick. But I think it really was. Nick Khan coming into more influence or asserting his influence. AEW separating itself from the pack from NXT, which we'll talk about. AEW becoming stronger, becoming more comparable to at least Dynamite, becoming more comparable in the demo to Raw. We're gonna make a number of AEW and WWE comparisons, which lots of people are interested in, I think. Some people get upset when you make WWE and AEW comparisons. That's unfortunate. But I think it really was, if you could summarize this year, and all these topics we're going to talk about, this was really kind of the year of the Khans, 2021. So, we're going to go somewhat in chronological order here. How does it begin?
Yeah. Well, before we do, just for those of watching live on YouTube, you have the super chat feature, and I know we're going to get a lot of probably questions or prediction, ask us for more predictions, probably to follow up on what we talked about last week. So you can do that with the super chat feature. Starts at $1. Donate whatever you think is worthy, and we will answer your question here on the Wrestlenomics YouTube feed for today.
Mm-hmm.
But we will get right into it, and we'll start with a story that broke January 25th, 2021, and that was the agreement for WWE to move at least their American WWE Network over to Peacock, the whole library, and now there is, and now we're about a year in this, and it's different, and some of the things that were promised happened, some things that weren't promised didn't, but it was a big deal because it was another huge money deal for WWE. And from Brandon, I think you said definitely making more than what they were doing off the network.
Yeah, it's guaranteed money, which is not what the direct-to-consumer network is, right? This is NBC Universal, their current partner that is a broadcaster of Raw, of NXT, of Ms. and Mrs. That partner guaranteeing we're going to pay you, probably in escalating a little bit more each year, but an average over 5 years, $200 million every year. So you don't have to worry about whether or not subscribers are going to be up or down. Your money is guaranteed, which is great for your business, great for your investors. It makes your business more predictable. And you can probably do better financial planning that way because you don't have to worry about the volatility of network subscribers, at least in the US, which is about 70% of them. It's what was promised that is not there?
I think I don't think the whole library was there in August.
I think it was mostly there.
Not everything is there. The hidden gems never made it over.
True.
So stuff like the Battle of Atlanta and stuff like that did not make it over there. I mean, not huge promises, but for the wrestling geeks like me, stuff that I wanted to see, and now you pretty much go to YouTube for again because people are putting it on YouTube. Or a lot of people did the VPN trick of using it WWE Network in another country. But I don't know. I think still to this day, searching something is very difficult. They go by seasons.
Yes.
And which is really annoying. And honestly, just trying to find something like I can't just type in AWA Super Clash 88. I have to like jump through a bunch of hoops.
And the original network,
because that's what I most recently
the
watched.
Original network had not a great search feature, but a better one, right?
Yes. Yeah. A better one, a standard streaming one.
Yes. It's cheaper now though, but you have to watch it with ads for $5 a month rather than $10 a month, or you can pay the $10 and get it ad free. But along with all this, you're getting access to everything on Peacock. Do you watch anything else on Peacock, Chris Gullo? I don't think I do.
We watched Dr. Death.
Mm.
It was a story about it was like
Steve
a surgeon,
Williams.
But he was like a serial killer.
Steve Williams.
Well, he was
had
not
that
so
great
much
tag
killer,
team
but he
with
was like,
Terry Gordy and
no, not that Dr. Death. It was a drama series with like I said, a doctor that did malpractice on purpose. But also watched a couple Christmas movies this year were on Peacock. So like you type in the Christmas movie in your Roku search engine, it's on Peacock. So, but I haven't really watched anything else. I don't watch the Saved by the Bell reboot or old episodes of The Office or anything like that.
Yeah. I guess one of the big questions going forward is W going to make similar deals around the rest of the world? Comcast owns Sky. Peacock has some sort of, I guess that's not really relevant that they own Sky because they're not really dealing with Sky anymore in the UK. But Peacock has some sort of presence in the UK, I understand. Maybe our UK listeners can update us on what that is. But I think Peacock is now available in the UK, but WWE is not a part of it. Someone will surely tweet me if I'm right or wrong about that. But it's it's certainly the only way to subscribe to the WWE Network through Peacock is in the US. I know there's kind of some similar setups in other countries, like in India through Sony Live at a lower price that is more appropriate for their economy. You can get access to the WWE Network through Sony Live, which is a streaming service in India. I believe in Canada, the only way to subscribe to the WWE Network is through Rogers. So that's one of the big opportunities for growth. Peacock. Someone says Peacock is not here yet. I assume in the chat. I assume they're referring to the UK. But that's one of the big opportunities for growth that we don't really know the answer to. People ask about it on the earnings call often. It's acknowledged as an opportunity for growth where Nick Khan can make some sort of deal in an international market for access to everything that the W Network provides. But that's not happened yet. I think another interesting aspect here is the lack of any extra content really coming to the network. I guess there has been the ruthless aggression thing, but just people have pointed out the Lex Luger documentary that was advertised did not end up being released. Nope. The who's the super fan that's in the front row of every show? There's supposed to be Vlad, the super fan. There's supposed to be a documentary. There's like a trailer that they aired on a pay-per-view or something for that. That never came out. It appears that maybe the thought is to hold that stuff back, and I don't know, maybe there's another season of the A&E biography series for WWE or something like that in the future. Why put that out on the network when that doesn't bring any extra value to you, when you can maybe license that content to an A&E or elsewhere for additional revenue? So I'm guessing that's what the thought is behind that. That's not and I haven't been told that that's why they're doing that, but that would be my guess. We're also seeing the pay-per-view schedule this year, or this coming year in 2022, really getting stripped down to 12 pay-per-views a year, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in my view from a creative standpoint. But why do more than 12 when the money's guaranteed? You don't need to go above and beyond and do extraordinary things to try to maintain and attract subscribers when the money is guaranteed. Other things that come to mind here, there seems to be at some point when Peacock was hyping up how successful they were and how many subs they had gained, that WWE was a big driver of subscribers for them. I do believe and I do buy that WrestleMania was the most watched WrestleMania ever because more people had access to it than ever, exceeding when it was the most watched ever in the early years, probably the early years of the WWE Network, or probably the 2018 WrestleMania when WWE hit its peak in subscribers. But this probably exceeded it this past year's WrestleMania, just because so many homes have access to Peacock just as part of their Comcast package because they happen to be Comcast cable customers, in addition to all the people who probably subscribed to Peacock, at least the $5 tier, because they wanted access to the WWE Network, or they didn't necessarily care that much about WWE, but maybe a few of them checked out WrestleMania anyway. So more reach than ever for what that's worth. That's good for their ad business and for all those ads. Not just the mid-rolls that you see when you watch the library content, but the ads that they air during pay-per-views. A big contrast this year between AEW pay-per-views and WWE pay-per-views has been, there's basically no commercials airing during AEW pay-per-views that I can think of. But there's, these pay-per-views have become very much like regular TV shows in terms of the ads that you see between, in the breaks between the segments of content, which is a way that WWE sharing that ad revenue, it seems, with Peacock is growing their ads and sponsors line within their media division, which is a line that we see reported on in earnings calls. What else?
Well, real quick, just to add that too, we saw a huge, I'd say, increase in-show advertising this year as well.
Yes.
Product placement and
zombies.
We saw the zombies and we saw the egg from Red Notice. I'm pretty sure like Boogs, the guy that's with Nakamura, he started as like a Miss Old Spice guy, like character or something.
That sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yeah.
What if here's a great idea. Here, Stephanie, I hope you're listening. What if not just moments and matches, but not just integrating it wonderfully into the content, but what if you had an entire WWE superstar who is based on one of your partner's brands? What if you had, a KFC Colonel Sanders WWE superstar who was just the mascot for one of your partner's brands? How awesome and how activating that would be. That would be amazing, wouldn't it?
The Toucan, I want Toucan Sam as a WWE character. Like,
great idea.
Just a real quick, just a hit to the chat on YouTube. We have probably multiple listeners from the UK as they're commenting on it. They said it became available on Sky, but WWE isn't included. And another listener said it's a sub tier of Sky for the original content they offer, not a standalone streaming service. So, and they, and that guy also commented they doesn't believe it will happen in a full capacity over there. So, and then another commenter talked about the Pizza Hut Battle Royal.
Yes.
So,
yes.
But yeah, it's been interesting, and I just hope they make searching easier as time goes on. And we'll see, will this be the year of Peacock being available with WWE content in more countries? Will that be stories we're covering in 2022? We'll see.
I mean, it depends on what Peacock does. I don't see it. I don't think Peacock is going to be widely distributed across the globe. We'll see, but yeah, I think WWE's going to try to make deals with other. It probably is trying to make deals currently with other streaming platforms around the world. I guess another thing to think about going forward is what becomes of Peacock. Peacock is not exactly breaking out as one of the leading new streaming services. Disney Plus, I hear, is doing very well, although their subscribers have stalled. Netflix is the leader. Netflix, I don't think, is going to get involved in wrestling, at least not in-ring wrestling. And Amazon Prime has enormous reach, but I don't know that people are really using it relative to its reach like the others, just because people subscribe to Amazon Prime for other reasons, like the shipping and the consumer products aspect of Amazon Prime. But it's very possible that, in maybe not next year, but in the years to come, that Peacock just doesn't have enough subscribership to sustain on its own, and it has to bundle with another streaming platform, or it even has to, maybe NBC Universal gets acquired or acquires or merges with another player out there, which could have all sorts of implications for the wrestling business. I don't know if the FCC would approve something like this, but maybe let's say Viacom, CBS, and NBC Universal end up merging. Maybe Comcast spins it off or something like that. It's just not clear to me that Peacock is going to break out. But maybe as time goes on, all these streaming services pick up enough subscribers to become sustainable, but we'll see.
All right. We're going to move on to our next story of 2021, and that's Ring of Honor. And that news began on October 27th, 2021, that Ring of Honor, and this is a statement just to refresh everyone's memory. Throughout the pandemic, our top priority is to keep everyone healthy and safe. And despite not producing any live events over 18 months, we were able to keep everyone fully contracted. We now find ourselves at a time where we need to make changes to our business operations and are planning to pivot for Ring of Honor with a new mission and strategy. This year will culminate with Final Battle in December, and we'll be taking the first quarter of 2022 to work internally to reimagine Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor has the most dedicated fans in the industry, and we appreciate the loyalty and patience as we reconceptualize ROH. We anticipate returning to live events in April for the Supercard of Honor with a new fan-focused product and provide a unique experience for wrestling fans. And also what happened with that was everybody who was on contracts were released immediately, or they kept some, I believe, until paying to the first quarter of 2022. But we are seeing the effects of that, of some of those talents appearing elsewhere already. As well as this happening on the cusp of a story we'll talk about later, with WWE releasing as many talents as it did.
Yeah.
In 2021.
So I'm trying to think who from Ring of Honor has now appeared elsewhere. Jay Lethal is in AEW now. Are there others?
Josh Woods has showed up on AEW Dark.
Okay. Anybody else come to mind?
TV wise, Gresham's announced for Impact's Hard to Kill pay-per-view in January.
Okay.
Where he's defending the Ring of Honor title.
Right. He's defending the Ring of Honor title around in places like GCW even, right?
Yeah. Yes.
He's running
his using all the Ring of Honor talents.
Gresham is running his own show that I hear about, Terminus.
Yes. Yep. So we've seen a little bit, and not a lot of people popping up. Well, I mean, they were already kind of there, but Taven and Mike Bennett seem to be regulars now in NWA. So,
So, I mean, my feeling about Ring of Honor, as we've talked about a few times over the years, is that this is a brand that had a window of opportunity in 17 or so. You can really look at how Ring of Honor was sort of used to New Japan's advantage. New Japan and Ring of Honor partnered beginning around 2013, I think. And New Japan used Ring of Honor to its advantage in this partnership to introduce a lot of its talent to the U.S. market, to U.S. wrestling fans. And New Japan made a run at being a global company, or at least running a lot of shows in the U.S. and attracting subscribers in the U.S. to New Japan World. New Japan is another story, though, and I think we'll touch on that later. But Ring of Honor really had a window of opportunity, but didn't really have the ambition, or Sinclair did not authorize the funds or put the leadership in place to execute on that. Instead, we had people like Hunter Johnston and Bully Ray in charge for and Hunter Johnston for a long time in Ring of Honor, and somebody like Bully Ray gaining power in Ring of Honor, and Ring of Honor not growing that much as a result. And the pandemic certainly didn't help. Didn't help any of these companies really, except for WWE and maybe AEW in terms of saving them money on production cost. But it's a Ring of Honor is a company that its attendance started to fall from, well, in 19 it definitely fell, and I think its buzz fell, and the interest and the energy that it had in wrestling fandom fell, and the releasing of all the talent, along with what we'll talk about in a moment with WWE releasing talent, has really it's diminished the power or the leverage that wrestling talent has had. Where I really think it was at its peak around 2019 or 2020 when there was a lot of competition and demand for wrestling talent.
And this might have came with AEW being created, but I think with Ring of Honor, this was the perception in 2021, and a perception that started before 2021 was they were always undoubtedly number 3. There was no like, oh, this could be number 3 or that could be number 3. Like, it was always Ring of Honor was number 3 throughout the whole 2000s when it was WWE and TNA, or even if you swap out New Japan at that point because TNA was at a lower level, Ring of Honor was number 3. And now wrestling landscape's kind of changed. You have multiple promotions on television, and Ring of Honor wasn't undoubtedly number 3 anymore. And I think that was a big thing into 2020 going into 2021, especially not running shows. And I just think the interest there from the common fan probably waned out.
And I think the energy and the demand that exists for a product like Ring of Honor was captured and harnessed by Tony Khan to create AEW with. The opportunity. I've said before, I think what AEW is, Ring of Honor could have been if they had the leadership, the vision, and the funding. And I mean, maybe Sinclair could have afforded it. I know Sinclair is very compromised financially now with the investment that they've made in regional sports networks. But yeah, there was definitely an opportunity, and maybe it would have been a conflict for Sinclair to get involved with other networks that they would have needed to get involved with if they wanted to do something that would become comparable to what AEW is doing in terms of national distribution on national television live. But yeah.
But I said this when I just was a fill-in co-host here on Wrestlenomics Radio. Sinclair, or at least at that point when I was looking it up, owned I think a larger share of the Yes Network. And the Yes Network, other than Yankee games and I believe Net games, it's just a lot of reruns of stuff and not a lot of new content. That would have been something that would have been huge for that network to have a Ring of Honor TV show, and you would think Sinclair would just put it on there. And I think that was one of the biggest fails that they did. And then what was it? Joe Koff claimed that they were working on a deal, but then the pandemic changed that, working on a deal with the network. And
I think one step that they needed to take, and maybe the pandemic got in the way of it, is that they needed a one central place for everybody around the country to be able to watch their program. They had that for a minute with Destination America for that year in 2016 when Ring of Honor and Impact were on the same block on Destination America. But there's no, and maybe I'm overemphasizing social media here, but there's no central place for everybody to sort of get together and tweet about it or text their friends about it that you can go and watch Ring of Honor. And it's certainly not live on top of that. It's just sort of scattered around on all these different time slots and all these different markets. And you catch it when you catch it, and it's sort of a singular experience rather than being a sort of communal experience where I can watch this show and see some big angle or big moment happen and sort of wonder what is everybody else saying and thinking about this, and I can check. You don't have that aspect at all with Ring of Honor unless it's the pay-per-view.
Do you think, sorry to sidetrack here, but do you think that's probably the biggest flaw with MLW's approach to get on as many services as possible?
I think
they're
that's
on BN, they're with Vice, go on. Sorry.
But I think if MLW is going to break out into becoming much bigger than it is, I think this is what they're doing is probably, a step towards becoming that. Like, I don't know how you go from zero to nationwide distribution all in one central location unless you're advantaged like Tony Khan was in terms of the funding and background experience and the connections with various television executives. If MLW is going to end up having a nationwide time slot someday, which I'm doubtful that I'm less optimistic that they're going to after how things went with the one broadcast that they had on Vice. But if that's going to happen for MLW, I think they have to incrementally get make their way there, just because of the position that they're in.
All right. Anything else to touch on Ring of Honor here?
I don't think so.
We'll have to see if they actually run shows in 2022. And we'll move on to our next story, which was the return to live touring between WWE and AEW. And Brandon, I'll let you get into this. But this was, we got what we expected. A lot of full houses in July and August when live touring came back.
Yes. So this, the reality that there actually was pent-up demand for tickets exceeded my expectations. I think myself and others were more pessimistic that, these first few shows will do really well. And this has had an effect on ratings too that I underestimated, which I guess we're not even really seeing calm down now. I mean, Raw is compromised. I'm getting sidetracked with ratings, but Raw is compromised by going against Monday Night Football, and we'll see how that changes after the Monday Night Football season is over with. But we just saw SmackDown do 2.3 million viewers, which is the biggest rating it did since September. So SmackDown is not really weakening here in terms of ratings. But anyway, ticket sales. We saw the first event in Houston, SmackDown, 14,000, 13,000 people out there. A strong house for the first show back on the road. Money in the Bank after that. All these events in Texas at first, but they really did a strong couple months. Really, the entire Q3, which is July, August, September, was pretty strong. The average attendance in North America was the highest it had been I think in any quarter, even if you include a WrestleMania quarter, which would be skewed by a single WrestleMania stadium event. The highest average North America live attendance, and that is paid in I don't know, at least 10 years, probably going back further, maybe going back to the Attitude Era. There was pent-up demand, and people did go out to these shows. We're in a time here in the summer where I don't know what the rates of COVID were in the summer during these months, but this is now in the time where everybody has access to the vaccine, and all these events didn't require vaccination proofs. A few of them did, but a lot of people went out to these events after. In WWE's case, there were no live events from March 2020 through the midpoint of July 2021. So what is that? What's 3, 4, 12 plus 4, 16 months of no events.
16 months, yeah.
Except for the WrestleMania that they did at limited capacity, of course, outdoors. We saw SummerSlam do over 45,000 tickets distributed. Most, I don't know. I don't know what to think about the paid here. But one highlight that we have had is we have WrestleTix out there actually counting these tickets up in an automated fashion using data that is essentially public through ticketing websites like Ticketmaster to count the dots. And there's a certain amount of judgment and sort of research that needs to be done in terms of what sections are actually being put on sale and what aren't, to determine what tickets have already sold or not. But WrestleTix doing a great job covering this stuff. It's something that I was thinking about doing early as the return to touring was gonna start. I was thinking, well, you could count up these dots, and I could write a Python script or something that would count the dots up. And I think I tinkered around with that a little bit. I certainly wouldn't have been able to handle tracking all of these events. So I'm so grateful that WrestleTix exists and does the work that is being done to track all of these live events and to track tickets distributed, which is not necessarily tickets sold, but I believe about 95% of tickets distributed represents the portion of tickets sold, generally speaking, for any one of these wrestling events. Certainly there are events where I believe there were a disproportionate number of comps, but but it's been great work that WrestleTix has done. So what we've seen is so I've got a couple charts here on the screen for people watching on YouTube. What we've seen, this is through today, the return to touring in July through today. WWE has ran around the world with some events in the UK, but mostly in the US, has run 86 events. This does not include the holiday tour events that they're going to do in the last couple days of the year, last few days. 86 events, total tickets distributed, 667,000 tickets distributed. So 2/3 of a million. 2/3 of a million tickets distributed. The average tickets distributed per event, now this includes all different event types, pay-per-views, Raw, SmackDowns, house shows, international events. But the average across all of those events, 7,750. I'm rounding slightly here. 7,750 across the entire period of July through the present. Compare that to AEW, 32 events. So what is that? Like a little bit more than a third. 32 events for AEW to WWE's 86. So a lot more events, way higher volume that WWE is doing. Largely driven by the fact that they run 2 live TV shows every week, and then they run house shows on top of that. AEW only runs in most weeks 1 event, 1 TV taping. And then sometimes, a few times they have run dedicated Rampage tapings, and then on occasion they run pay-per-views every quarter. Total tickets distributed for AEW, 241,000 on 32 events. 241,000. Compare that to 667,000 for WWE. Average tickets distributed across all of their events. Apparently I didn't round this, or maybe I didn't round either number. But anyway, average tickets distributed 7,526. So slightly lower across the entire period to WWE, 7,750. WWE slightly higher by a couple hundred there across that entire period. But if we look at the more recent trend, and sort of what I've done here for people watching on YouTube is I've taken all of the events, each event's ticket distributed number, and I've put across the chart a moving average, a moving 10 event average. So what's your average across the 10 events in the past, across this entire timeline? And you raise the question, yes, there's been pent-up demand. W had a very strong Q3 for live events, following in the pre-pandemic era when live events struggled to make a profit in many quarters. They reported negative operating income. That means their live event division was not profitable. Even though they're more profitable than ever as an entire company, their live events division was essentially a loss leader. That was something that was a cost to them, that was allowing them to produce content that was very valuable and allowing them to collect massive TV rights fees. But their live events division was not profitable in most non-WrestleMania quarters in 2018 and 2019. So, tremendous pent-up demand in this non-WrestleMania quarter of Q3 2021. What is the demand like nearer to the present here in December, late December 2021? And we see a 10-event moving average that is now at about 6,000, whereas early on in the return to touring, it was up at 8,000 for a lot of that time through about early October. And then after October, it has really dropped down from about 8,000 to about 6,000. I excluded the SummerSlam here. I should note I excluded the SummerSlam because that would upset the scale here, and I excluded the Saudi Arabia event in October.
With these numbers being very similar to where they are this month, the question to ask is this a sign that AEW is probably doing better than expected live touring, like, running bigger arenas and all that, or is just interest in WWE has waned down where that's why they look closer than they should be?
Well, what's happening with AEW? What do you see on this chart? Because I haven't described it yet for the listeners. For AEW, what is AEW's 10 event moving average compared to AEW's at this point here in December? What does it look like to you, Chris Gullo?
Well, I mean, as of right now, it's around that 6,000 mark, which I'm sure you're getting more, but it was in that September, October, around 8,000, and it, it's its all-time highs where it looks like WWE stayed a while at, but now they're around the same.
Yes.
As obviously COVID numbers go up, and the intrigue of going to see live events isn't as a thing to do as it was in the summer.
It's not as a novel experience anymore. What we're seeing is now the average attendances, and then for WWE, this does include house shows, but now the average attendances, even though WWE runs way more events and is selling in total way more tickets over any period of time, we're seeing average attendance for AEW and WWE remarkably similar per event. In AEW's case, since November, it's just 2 months, and a lot of this is determined by the market that you're running in. But AEW seems to be it's trending up, but I think it's too small of a segment of time to really say too much about. We'll see what happens in the future. WWE was supposed to go to Canada. That looks like it's being postponed. They were supposed to go to Toronto and Quebec. That's being postponed. The Toronto show is still happening, but it's happening at a limited capacity, I think. John Pollock from Post Wrestling has been following that and reporting on that. I'm curious to see what happens in 2022. Hopefully the Omicron variant, hopefully cases go down, and people can safely go to events. But AEW has not been to Canada yet. AEW is never in its history. It's never gone to Canada. Has not gone to the UK. I think that those are going to be big moments for them when they go there in terms of ticket sales. They have not gone to California yet. They have not they have not gone to Oregon or Washington yet, Washington State, right? So they've gone as far west as Las Vegas, of course, for the Double or Nothing pay-per-views, but really not gone to the west, to the far west coast yet, which I think. I don't know if the west coast of the United States is a huge, opportunity for them, and I wonder if part of the reason they haven't gone there is because they haven't seen certain signals that suggest that they could draw strongly there. But Canada and the UK, I think, are going to be big deals for them the first time that they go there. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, as I've talked about before, I think what you're seeing is that going to a live event is a massively frictious experience, if that's a word. It's a frictious event as opposed to consuming media through a smartphone or a tablet or watching something on television. That's a free experience. It's very convenient in your home. It doesn't take a lot of friction to overcome to have that experience of watching some video, whether it's a live broadcast on a TV network or whether it's consuming some bit of content on your smartphone. What is a high friction experience is paying money to go to an event, traveling to that event, getting transportation to that event, sitting there in that experience, through the expensive food and so forth. And I think the fan base, it's a measure of how passionate, to an extent, it is a measure of how passionate your fan base is. And AEW seems, in my judgment, perhaps has a more passionate fan base for its product than WWE does for its product. Even though WWE is still far, yes, ahead of AEW in a number of categories, including total ticket sales.
I might be attending a WWE house show on Thursday night, so if I do...
That's right, they're coming to Buffalo.
Yes, I will give my details of my experience compared to...
When is that again? When is that?
Well, I just said I will give my details of
when is that?
Thursday. Oh, I'm sorry. Thursday. December 30th.
hopefully one of the big things that I'm looking forward to in 2022 is hopefully the internet service company Greenlight will come to my neighborhood, and I will get supercharged internet, and maybe when I'm firing off at 500 up, 500 down, there will be less latency between you and me here. So hopefully we get that straightened out, because I know you already in your neighborhood in South Buffalo, you've already got Verizon Fios, right? And when I went to your house that one time and I connected to your Wi-Fi, I was astonished at how fast something was happening for me. When I was connected to your Wi-Fi, it was amazing. But here I've got 30 down and if I'm lucky, 4 up. For people who know what I'm talking about here. But anyway.
All right, so yeah, we will move on to the next story and discuss a huge year for AEW in signings. CM Punk and the American Dragon Bryan Danielson both were signed by AEW. Major acquisitions. You could also argue that Adam Cole and now the most recently Kyle O'Reilly were large acquisitions as well, but nothing I don't think compares to Punk and Danielson and the effect it had on the company or is going to have.
Yes. Many people thought that CM Punk would never set foot in a pro wrestling ring ever again, with the exception of doing a masked run-in on an indie show and delivering a GTS to somebody. But CM Punk returned to wrestling on August 20th, 2021. I think it was a huge moment. I mean, I watched it live and I thought it was one of the most exciting moments in pro wrestling history. And then Bryan Danielson came along a couple weeks later. I think the energy that AEW, the symbol that AEW is an alternative to WWE. CM Punk is a symbol of frustration with WWE to a lot of people. Again, when we were talking about Ring of Honor, I think AEW has subsumed, is that the right word? Has taken over Ring of Honor's place as this sort of, I want to say more traditional, but that's not the right word, but this sort of, I don't want to say hardcore, but I don't think that's the right word either, but this a certain type of wrestling fans desires for a certain type of wrestling product that is not really what WWE is delivering. And CM Punk is the angsty symbol of that. Bryan Danielson is sort of the great performer symbol of that. And now they're both sort of in the place where it makes sense for them to be. So they're there, and they're two of the biggest stars now for AEW. This coincided with a time of really strong ratings for AEW and a really strong pay-per-view over, was it 120,000 buys? I should remember this. If you go to Wrestlenomics.com and go into the resources section, go to AEW pay-per-view buys, you'll see the number there. But they did a strong pay-per-view buy for All Out 2021 with only CM Punk in a match. I mean, there are other things advertised, but Danielson was not advertised. He debuted as an unadvertised surprise, although people speculated that maybe he would show up there, and Adam Cole did as well. But ratings were strong during this period of, August through September, and now we're in this sort of post NHL era for AEW's ratings. But yeah, it's these two wrestlers seem to be in their right place for the type of product that AEW is, in contrast to WWE, which is where they were previously. But what's also happened, which is worth mentioning, is that AEW has signed a ton of wrestlers. I didn't do any research or preparation for this, but AEW signed a ton of wrestlers, more wrestlers than they need, and I don't know. They could do a round of releases too if they wanted to, but maybe that's, I don't know what AEW wants to do in terms of being a talent relations contrast to WWE and not cutting people before their deals are up, which is a talking point with many people as far as, oh, did so and so get a no cut clause? I don't think anybody's getting a no cut clause. But AEW has a lot more wrestlers than it needs, as it signs more and more wrestlers. So something to watch in the future. Then again, I don't know what the cost of talent is for them. I don't know what that means in the total picture. It's making AEW less profitable if it is if it to the extent that it is profitable. We know that AEW's made something in the realm of a $10 million investment in all the aspects of gaming that they're involved in, and that is, according to Tony Khan in his profile in Forbes, that is preventing AEW from being profitable. Without that investment, perhaps they would have been profitable in this year or last year. I estimate that AEW is making, at least last year, I'll have to sit down and think about what I think they've made in 2021, which means I'm probably going to have to do another annual report come January. But AEW in 2020, I believe, made around $60 million in revenue. No idea what they made in terms of net income or anything like that, or any profit metric. But they certainly made more revenue this year because they were able to sell tickets, and they almost certainly sold more merchandise, considering they got CM Punk and other new talent. They did better in pay-per-view. So they're making more money this year than last year. They were in the second year of a TV deal where they probably got a guaranteed escalator, even though some of that TV money is ad revenue share, I believe. But yeah. And they made new deals with some TV partners around the world too, including in India. So, yeah. I guess my point was, signing all this talent is a cost, and it's making them less profitable than they might be otherwise. But it is also, in favor of talent generally. The more wrestlers who have jobs, a little bit more leverage they have in a year where their leverage has diminished. So, there's a tangent.
All right. You mentioned AEW releases, not something that seems likely, but we're going on those 3-year contracts that we believe were signed. Maybe we might hear some non-renewals. I mean, we already kind of basically had that with Swole, so Big Swole. So it would be interesting to see if there's other talents that don't have their contracts renewed within 2022.
Yeah.
We talked about a lot of comings to AEW. Now let's talk about some goings with WWE, and a story that broke November 5th, and that was Kristina Salen was replaced as CFO of World Wrestling Entertainment just a week after the conference call.
No, a day.
A day. That's right. Yeah, I thought it was. That's right. It was that close. Sorry, a day after the conference.
It was the next morning. So there was conference call. Conference call ended. Talent was released immediately after conference call. We'll get into that. Next morning, I will never forget sitting in the chair in the other room, looking at my phone at like 8:15 a.m. and being like, "Oh, press release in my email from WWE." Not that they send me press releases, but there was an email alert that I've signed up to through the corporate website. So, Kristina Salen departing WWE as CFO, Chief Financial Officer, after a year and a few months in the job, essentially replacing many of the duties that George Barrios, who was the former CFO before her, former permanent CFO before her, had done. In the interim, Frank A. Riddick III, a member of the board of directors, had been interim CFO, and now replacing Kristina Salen on a permanent basis, Frank A. Riddick III. So, Kristina Salen had been the CFO for Modus Operandi and, United Masters? And she had been CFO for about a year and a few months at those places, was CFO for about a year and a few months at this place, WWE, and now exiting. I was told that she was contributing to a lot of turnover. People were not... And at least in the finance department, people were choosing to leave WWE because of. I'd never got too much detail about what the issue was, but she was contributing to turnover and people wanting to leave the company, at least in the finance department for WWE. I'd heard that she was a problem, whatever that means. So she left the company, and now Frank A. Riddick III coming off the bench. The board of directors again for WWE. So,
all right, and just to kind of touch up on some WWE financial stuff, you want to break into the stock prices, Brandon?
Yeah, so let's disclose. Let's make our full disclosures here. Are you a WWE investor, Chris Gullo?
I am not.
Were you a WWE investor in the calendar year of 2021?
I was.
You were. Did you make a loss or a gain?
Slight gain.
Slight gain. Okay.
I sold before it got that high, all-time high day.
It's all-time highs, not in this year.
Well, not all-time high, but you know what I mean. That last year's high, I should say. Sorry.
Share price as of the close of business Friday, or I don't know if both business was open Friday, maybe it was Thursday. Yeah, it looks like it was Thursday. $48.36. Quiz: what is, within a dollar, what is WWE's all-time high share price? Without looking it up.
All-time. I'm gonna guess $81. I'm just winging it there.
$100.
Okay.
In the run up, and let me just describe what may have been driving that high. I think in 2018, in the hysteria, the optimism around. So WWE had made its new deal in 2018. I believe it was following that. That was a big deal. WWE more than tripled its US TV rights. And then I think there was optimism that this is just the beginning, and now they have international rights to do, and that was the timing. The India deal is coming up. The UK deal, they're going to get increases similar maybe around the world. And what it ended up happening was the UK deal. I don't know what the UK deal was. It appears to be a lateral movement at best. Something very close to a lateral movement, maybe a down movement when they moved away from Sky and moved to BT Sport and Channel 4. The India deal was a pretty good deal for them. I believe they doubled. They went from like $28 million average annual value, something like that for Sony in India, and now $50 million average annual value. And then the MENA rights deal was coming up. That never happened. That led to a shareholder class action lawsuit. So, lots of excitement that huge and awesome US TV rights deal that they did with NBC Universal and Fox. That was going to be a signal of what was to come internationally. $100 share price, which is more than double what their share price is right now. Their market capital is just under $4 billion. That means the market capital of WWE was for a moment $8 billion or something very close to that. And then the bubble burst. TV rights bubble did not burst, but the W share price bubble burst. Moral of the story here in 2021, as I digress, W share we have lined up here on the screen for people watching on YouTube is we have a line chart showing the last year. So this is the last 365 days. So mostly this is in 2021. The last 365 days, the growth in share price of WWE stock and the growth in value of the S&P 500. The S&P 500 over the last year is up 27%. So if you bought somebody's mutual fund that just mirrors the S&P 500, if you bought a share of that on Christmas last year, let's say you invested $100 in the S&P 500 last year on Christmas. You now have $127. So you made a 27% gain. If you invested $100 in WWE on Christmas last year, you now have $101. So the point is here that this, the S&P 500 is a reflection of what the biggest 500 companies in the United States. I think those are all U.S. companies in the S&P 500. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is a reflection of what I want to say the economy. But as we've entered this pandemic era, people are quick to point out that the stock market is not a reflection of the economy, which is true enough. The biggest 500 companies in the United States, roughly, they performed pretty well in 2021. Their value grew about 27%. WWE grew almost not at all. So we have a couple tweets here from One from David George Kosh from Bloomberg, and one from our friend MJ and NJ. Their comments about this was in reply to my tweet last night. What were the biggest stories in wrestling business in 2021?
All right, I can read those for you. So, David George Kosh, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit on there, but the fact investors don't see much growth in WWE relative to a benchmark index should be indicative. I can't pronounce that. Of a broader story here. Indicative, or yeah,
Indicative.
all right. And then MJ,
indicative.
Yeah, I don't know why it's just not. I think I found the word that stumped me.
It is a difficult word. Indicative.
And MJ, the devaluing of pro wrestlers and input costs, including their aggressive reach into third-party revenue streams for talent, as well as the WWE stock not showing any strength or participating in broader bull market, turning TV rights renewal into a make-or-break moment circa 2013.
MJ from NJ may or may not be holding certain positions in WWE stock. I don't know. But so, yeah, just their point was just near to what I was just saying, that there's this bull market. There's a pretty strong stock market here, but WWE's not really correlating to that. They're basically flat over the year. I mean, there's been a lot of bounce. We can look at this chart again for people watching on YouTube. It's really just been a bounce of up, down, up, up, down, up, down. WWE had a run this year as a meme stock, as Wall Street bets took interest in WWE for a minute or two there. So yeah, I don't know. What we're seeing a lot is, the stock price will go down after earnings calls. But yeah, I think if I have no positions in WWE, I have no plans in the next 72 hours or next 72 months to initiate any such positions. But I think the WWE stock is somewhat undervalued, based on the assumption that the value of WWE is approximately 14 or 15 times their forward-looking EBITDA over the next 12 months. Follow me there? I essentially, based on a formula that people use to determine the value of companies like WWE, 14x, 15x EBITDA, based on how I think WWE is going to perform, I think WWE's a little bit undervalued. So I think they're still in a good position considering where Raw ranks, where SmackDown ranks among programming. Generally, I think they're still in a good position to grow their media rights value in the next round. That said, I think there's some vulnerability there because you got content that's turning people off and is not attracting people, and it's going to be that way as long as Vince McMahon is in charge of creative. So that's always going to be a vulnerability as long as Vince McMahon is in control of creative. But there's no negative trend in their rank among other programming. So I think they're still in a good position, and they have Nick Khan in charge of making those deals, and he seems to be somebody who had a lot of success making those deals. So I think there's good reason to be optimistic about their media rights value going forward in the next round of U.S. rights, which is coming up, probably going to start this coming year. Probably going to be completed 2023. So there's that. And we'll see something in the year to come about where their quote-unquote Hulu rights will land. Probably not with Hulu, be my guess. Maybe with Peacock, maybe with Amazon. Maybe with Chris Gullo thinks Tubi. Tubi all the way.
Tubi TV.
Tubi.
Yeah.
We'll see. Why this lack of excitement in W stock these days? Is AEW really a factor here? I think that's one of the big dichotomies I'm trying. I'm always trying to. It's always sort of in the back of my mind. Is like, this is gonna be a long show, by the way.
Yeah, it's okay. There's no Bills home games, so we're having fun.
One of the things that's always in the back of my mind is like the Wrestlenomics content, our content. It's mostly wrestling fans who have a business interest in, a fascination with the business of pro wrestling. And there's, across the continuum of people who are, interested in it purely as a stock or people who have a wider media business interest. But I'm not totally clear about in Stamford and in Titan Tower, how much are they really thinking about AEW? I'm certain they're thinking about AEW more than they let on. Where they, it's, I guess, only the smart thing from a PR standpoint to downplay the extent to which they are competition AEW is. So certainly they care more than they show publicly. Nick Khan saying things like, "I've never thought about a competitor." And we're in the media business, not the wrestling business. But how much does whatever AEW is doing? AEW's had some relative success here. Does the stock market see that as a vulnerability for WWE? To some extent. To how much of extent? I'm not sure. I think it is a risk that to WWE stock that is AEW could just speaking from this is not me speculating that it's going to happen, but purely from if I were, which I am not, a financial advisor. This is not investment advice, nor should it be construed as such. I think it's always a risk for the foreseeable future that AEW's popularity is going to suddenly exceed. They're going to catch fire with some talent or something like that and become this much more popular brand of wrestling than they are now, and surpass WWE in terms of popularity and in terms of unlimited numbers of categories. So I think that risk is always there, and that could have a really serious effect on WWE's ratings and other areas, which could tremendously hurt their value as a company. I don't see that as extremely likely, but it's very possible that could happen at any point, or that there is a breaking point somewhere in the future that just hasn't arrived yet, where there could be finally rapid, sort of think about it as like, there's somebody living in the floor above you who's, they're putting too much stuff on their floor, and they're getting ready to fall through the ceiling. And as far as I can tell, it doesn't look too bad. There is a little bit of, it does look like the ceiling is weakening a bit, but it doesn't look like they're going to fall through the ceiling because I can't really see what's on that floor above me. And then eventually, boom, everything falls through and it falls down on top of me. Maybe a point like that is coming. Again, I don't think that's super likely, but that's possible. How much does AEW matter to WWE? Probably quite a bit. Probably should matter quite a bit. That said, it's not inappropriate. It's appropriate enough to think about, WWE in the wider media landscape, in terms of all of the opportunities it has to make money and for revenue growth, in terms of licensing their IP across all sorts of things, which is what Nick Khan is there to do, in part, to license The Rock to the Young Rock, and to license them across gaming, across all the things that they're trying to do with places like Cameo, and to make better deals with a trading card partner like Panini, not a sandwich company, but a trading card company, and things of that nature. So, yeah, I think the AEW factor is real. It's something that I'm always thinking about how much to focus on that. In the times where I talk to people in the investment world, that's a big subject that I talk about with them. And I wonder if it's just because I'm the wrestling guy, or, as opposed to being the non-wrestling media guy, but that's just an area that I'm prepared to talk about more so than maybe other people that they talk to. But yeah.
Just one final thing I'll comment on before we wrap it up here is, WWE, they're not a wrestling company, they're a media company, all that. But, just to kind of build on what you're saying, when it comes to TV rights deals, they're going to compare WWE networks are. They're going to look at, oh, well, this did this, and we might, that's the things they're going to compare. They're not going to go, well, how did WWE do compared to Sean Hannity? Like, that's not the stuff they're looking for.
I think there's comparisons across other sports, like, the NHL and things like that. But it frustrates me that, and I think it frustrates some other fans. How much of a section of fans, I don't know. Is it significant? I don't know. But it frustrates me and other people that they refuse to acknowledge and embrace their citizenship in the wrestling business. What Chris Gullo, what is WWE's biggest source of revenue?
That would be the actually it'd be the, is it Fox more than NBC? No, the NBC Universal money. It really
Okay,
is.
what's Fox and NBC paying them for?
For TV rights, yeah.
And TV rights to what?
To, well, SmackDown for Fox, Raw for
Ah.
Raw and NXT.
And what's on Raw and SmackDown? Is it movies? Is it are they streaming games? Is it esports? Is it are they showing off their action figures and all their great partnerships with all their partners? Are they selling them video of all their charitable activities? What are they selling on Raw and SmackDown? What's on Raw and SmackDown?
Some wrestling matches, promos, and storylines like an egg.
Okay. Wrestling. In-ring content.
But yes, wrestling.
Okay. So it's fine to say that we have sort of these unlimited revenue opportunities, but your core content, you call it core content on the training schedules. You call it core content in the 10Qs and the 10Ks. Core content. What's your core content? It's in-ring programming. What's in-ring programming? It's a way to not say wrestling. It's wrestling. You're a wrestling company. Come on now. And I think within Vince McMahon's psychology, there's some self-loathing and shame that he's in the wrestling business, and he wants to. Maybe some people have made him feel bad about being in the wrestling business, and people, Lord knows, there's a stigma to pro wrestling. Some of it justified, some of it unjustified. That people look down on wrestling, and he wants to overcome that. Rather than repairing the image of wrestling, he wants to transcend wrestling. And in doing so, I think that's bad for their brand because it alienates people who love wrestling. Anyway.
All right, we'll move on to our next story and kind of address some speculation. So the next story we're going to talk about was originally first from April 27, 2021, where the NHL and TNT made an agreement. NHL also made an agreement with ESPN as well for games and broadcasting rights. But then on May 19, 2021, we had a little bit of an after effect of this where we now find out that Dynamite will move to TBS in 2022, but we'll also get 4 quarterly specials in TNT, and Rampage was staying on TNT.
Yes. So, a big story for AEW this year is the NHL. Very big story. And it's sort of, like I think I said at the time, and it sort of turned out that way, that you've got this friend, and this friend is really important to you in your life. And then this friend now has a new friend that you kind of have to compete with for attention. In April, as you just said, Turner unexpectedly got rights to the NHL, to NHL games. ESPN has half of the bundle of rights. Turner got the other half, the B package, if you will. The expectation among many media commentators that I've listened to was that the NHL would be renewed by NBC Sports, and we'd heard that NBC Sports Network was going to shutter, and this had a lot to do with wrestling. But then Nick Khan broke the news on the earnings call, which must have been the Q1 earnings call in April or May. Well, it must have been before this, right? So April or so. That. We knew that the NBC Sports Network was going to shut down. That led to speculation about where those games would go. Maybe those games would go to Wednesday night. Whoa, if they go to Wednesday night, what's that going to do to NXT? More on that later. But it turned out, no, they're not going to go to the USA Network or to elsewhere in the NBC Universal world, because Nick Khan reported that we think that that's done, that they're not going to go back to NBC Universal. And they ended up selling half of those rights to ESPN and half of those rights to TNT. And rather than being a competitor for time and attention and time slots with NXT, the NHL turned out to be a competitor for time slots with AEW. And so that came down in April, and we know because of the renewal, the extension that happened in January 2020 for AEW, that AEW was to provide an additional 1 hour of programming on top of Dynamite to Turner. That had not happened yet in the spring of 2021. So we learned in May, around the time of the upfronts, which is a big presentation for advertisers, the upfronts that happen every May, that AEW's additional 1 hour program would be called AEW Rampage. It would air on TNT beginning in August. AEW Dynamite would no longer air on TNT and would move to TBS in 2022. That's coming up the Wednesday after next. And AEW would have 4 quarterly specials that will air on TNT. The first of which now we know is called Battle of the Belts, which I don't know if you can look this up, is a 1 hour special, right? This is not a 2 hour program or more. This is a 1 hour program, right?
Yeah, I don't
and if you could get the date for Battle of the Belts too. But that's happening. To be clear here, I don't know that this move to TBS, these 4 additional specials, really mean that much more in the way of payments to AEW. So here's what I believe. I believe at the very beginning of Turner's relationship with AEW, that AEW is being compensated a share of ad revenue, maybe roughly half, maybe less than half of the ad revenue that was sold during the airings of AEW Dynamite, and they were probably paid roughly the cost of production during that early run from October 2019 through the end of the year, roughly. Then in January 2020, they made a new deal. Ratings were apparently good enough, whatever the reasons were, things were going well enough. They renewed the deal to the value for 4 years, with the last year being an option, with a value, an average annual value of roughly $43.75 million per year. Or as Tony Khan has tweeted a number of times, $175 over 4 years. Is that right? I always get confused. So if I divide 175 divided by 4, that is okay. That's correct. So they got a lot of that money is now guaranteed, right? So it's way more money for AEW. I think about 10% of that though is still a margin of ad revenue share. But that's roughly what it's worth. That's roughly what it's worth, with some movement there, depending on how well or poorly ad sales perform. So that started in January 2020, not this year, January 2020, now about to be 2 years ago. I don't believe that this move for Dynamite moving to TBS for quarterly specials means that much more in the way of revenue. I know Tony Khan has said things to that effect. That seemed vague to me. I think Dave Meltzer may have reported or said things that, assume that's what's happening. I don't think AEW is making much more than $45 million a year in TV revenue on an average annual basis across the entire term of this contract. I think people assume that because they're on, Rampage is another TV show, they're getting paid more for it. I don't believe that. That was part of the deal in January 2020. People believe that, well, because they moved to TBS, they had to pay him more. I don't know. I don't know. Tony Khan still tweets $175 million, which is what he tweeted before and after these announcements were made. So, and what leverage, let's game it out. What leverage does AEW have to say, oh, you're going to do this? Pay me more. Or what?
I mean, yeah, there's not much. I mean,
yeah, and it's not like TBS is this downstep. TBS is a very similar profile. When we looked at the most watched networks, TNT is more watched than TBS, largely because of the NBA. But TBS is a pretty strong network as well, comparable, is in essentially the same number of homes. I tweeted what the household coverage was once And we got Tony Khan repeating the number on Busted Open, and people bring it up all the time that TBS is in more homes. It's essentially negligible difference. They're in essentially the same number of homes, because probably what's happening is Turner is selling their package of their portfolio of networks to all these carriers, and I can't imagine they're ever selling TNT without TBS. But anyway, so there's that.
Yeah, just a January 8th, 1 hour long, 8 p.m. Saturday night.
Okay.
So that's for Battle of the Belts.
And that is a separate live event too, I believe, which is not in conjunction with a taping of Dynamite and or Rampage.
Yeah, no, it's just live in Charlotte. So I'm assuming what they do with stuff like this, like where they've done live Rampages, where they'll just give fans basically like 2 hours of AEW Dark elevation tapings.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, or maybe that's been announced. I'm just not aware.
All right. So we're gonna move on to our next story. But actually, before we do, I'm seeing a lot of questions. I remember we have the super chat feature. It starts at $1. You could donate whatever you'd like, but please use the super chat feature for questions. All right, so we're gonna move on to our next story, Brandon, and that was from March 30th. And this was a story, a very interesting one. The Wednesday Night War coming to an end, and it was the press release we got.
Hold up. Well, one more thing to get to here about preemptions in the slide 2 back from where you are. So one thing that I realized this week, and I talked about half of this on the live TV ratings talk on Thursday. So Dynamite is going to be on TBS after January 5th. Rampage is going to continue to be on TNT. And the reason why they're going to TBS, why Dynamite is moving to TBS, is because the NHL is going to air in that primetime slot instead of Dynamite. Even though Dynamite, by the way, delivers better ratings than the 18-49 demo, but who knows? Maybe there's something about ad sales that the NHL is a more prestigious brand than pro wrestling, so maybe they're able to sell. Maybe they're able to derive more value out of the NHL than they are out of AEW. Anyway, Dynamite on TBS will not have to be preempted for basketball, for the NBA, I should say, for the NBA playoffs, which is they were preempted for 4 straight weeks from late May to late June this year. So they won't have to deal with that. Dynamite won't. Will there be any other preemption? There will still be. I'm pretty sure this is not a report. This is not something that's been confirmed by anybody involved. But just looking at the ratings and looking at the TV schedule, I think this is what's going to happen. Dynamite on TBS is going to be preempted in March for NCAA basketball tournament, March Madness, at least for 1 week. Then in October, Dynamite is probably going to be preempted for Major League Baseball playoffs. So it'll probably be 2 weeks where they are preempted. Dynamite was preempted, I believe, a total of 6 weeks. Maybe, I think just 6 weeks. Dynamite was preempted this year. But being preempted 2 weeks is better than being preempted 6 weeks. So it's not as if Dynamite will no longer be preempted. They'll just be preempted less. Rampage. This is semantic, but I believe why was Rampage on Saturday last night, Chris Gullo?
Why was Rampage on this Saturday?
Why was it on Christmas night, not Friday night on Christmas Eve?
Because of the 24-hour marathon of the Christmas story.
You are correct. So look, Rampage was preempted in my view. I heard it only discussed the Rampage moved to Christmas night, Saturday night, instead of its usual Friday night time slot on Christmas Eve. It's just going to be moved because Christmas Eve is a tough night to capture viewership, and Christmas night will be better. I think this is just a decision from Turner that they wanted to air 24 hours of a Christmas story instead of wrestling that night, and Christmas night was the earliest opportunity to reschedule. And you can say that, well, there's this tradition of wrestling, so that's great on Christmas night. So that's great. We'll do it then. So that's what happened. So that's a preemption. Not that necessarily they would have done that much better on Christmas Eve. I don't know. Anyway, Rampage is probably going to be preempted in March for NCAA basketball, the tournament. And then Rampage is probably going to be preempted for at least 1 week in June for the NBA playoffs. These are my assumptions, speculations. So we will still be seeing at least 2 preemptions for Dynamite next year, and at least 2 preemptions for Rampage next year.
Yeah, the one thing that Rampage could possibly not get preempted if they decide to flip one of the first 4 games, because on the Wednesday that you're talking about where the preemption may happen that's the first 4. So that's the 4 teams trying to get in the tournament. Or and the way that kind of that works, it's TBS and then True TV, but they could literally, it's not all 4 networks like they always do. So they could literally move that. Maybe they'll move that True TV game to TNT or wherever, maybe. But then you have NHL, so probably that probably will happen. But that they may change that. They have not released a 2022 TV schedule yet. I try to find that while you were just talking about that.
Good work.
Okay. Now it's just it's an avoidable preemption if they want. Rampage is not going to be avoidable, but Dynamite will.
But you're talking about, well, then somebody's show has got to go to True TV.
Well, no. So True TV is already getting a first 4 game. True TV and TBS split the games, but they show the NCAA tournament games over CBS, True TV, TNT, and TBS.
Okay.
So they could move, but then I forgot the NHL probably won't happen. So yeah, it's going to be AEW gets a shaft.
Okay.
So
moving on.
All right, yeah, we're gonna move on, and to the end of the Wednesday Night War that happened March 30th, 2021. We saw in a press release, WWE and USA Network today announced a multi-year extension for NXT, which will move to Tuesday nights live on the USA Network starting at 8 o'clock, 7 Central Time, beginning April 13th. The new agreement for the live weekly 2-hour show furthers WWE and USA's nearly 3-decade-long relationship.
Mm-hmm. So I think this is. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to cue you up with, I think you have a little bit of a history here of the Wednesday Night War to break down.
Yes. So I think this announcement, Gullo just read the first sentence of a press release from March 30th. I think this is probably the most understood story of 2021. Although people are well aware that the Wednesday Night War came to an end in the spring of 2021. But this announcement that this new deal was made, and we don't know what the details are, which I think is sort of ominous in terms of what the value of this was. And we never knew what it was in the first place for the value of NXT being on the USA Network instead of the WWE Network. The reason why NXT moved from the WWE Network to the USA Network was that... this is one of the most popular programs, perhaps the most popular weekly program on the W Network. And people like Laura Martin, the stock analyst from Needham, bringing up how I don't understand why you're moving this content off of streaming and onto linear, when that's the whole power of streaming, is that you've got exclusive content, and that's why you have to sign up for the streaming service, et cetera, et cetera. So, NXT moving off the W Network did not hurt subscribers, in my view. It was, de minimis. One of my favorite George Barrios words. Nominal, not that big of a deal. But it was to compete with AEW, as much as they would deny that publicly. But another reason was that, hey, look, Raw and SmackDown are tremendously valuable on live linear TV. NXT is this overperforming brand, which it was, and let's move it over to linear TV, and maybe we can make this a third. So we could have Raw and SmackDown and NXT driving really strong TV rights fees. That's a fair argument. And oh, by the way, there's just a new wrestling program that maybe we could run head-to-head with. But what happened was that the Wednesday Night War, as it would come to be known, happened, and the final score with the final Wednesday Night War showdown happening in early April was there were 75. Is that correct? Yes. Why do I have one here? No, it's a tie. Tie 0. Okay, there were 75 weeks. The Wednesday Night War lasted 75 weeks, so over a year. And we have here the numbers in total viewership and P18 to 49. AEW led out of 75 weeks in total viewership 63 of those 75 times. NXT led 10 of those times. This is in total viewership. And then they tied. They actually tied, had the same number down to the 1,000, down to 1,000 viewers 2 times. 2 times they tied in total viewership. So AEW in total viewership was 63, 10, and 2 was essentially their record. And then in the key demo, the much argued over key demo, which in fact does matter and is in fact more important than total viewership. In the key demo of 1849, which is where the ads are, which is what the ads are sold on. Nobody buys ads based on what the P2 Plus is. People buy ads based on what the 1849 is, and other demos, including P50 Plus. Which, if you look at the commercials, you can guess which ones are P50 Plus. But anyway, the record for AEW in the demo across the entire Wednesday Night War, 74 and 1. No ties. 74 wins for Dynamite, 1 win for NXT. That coming on December 19th, 2019. I don't know what the reason was. I don't know what was on television. But Dynamite did appear to be weakening in that rough month of December 2019 until Tony Khan said, "I'm taking over creative." I think is a very rough summary of what happened there. So NXT never, other than 1 week, beat Dynamite in the demo. On 10 occasions, they beat Dynamite in total viewership. In the last couple weeks, in that takeover week this year, NXT did beat Dynamite, I believe, on the very last week in total viewership of the Wednesday Night War. But suffice to say, they lost the Wednesday Night War. This press release on March 20th is essentially the surrender. This is the armistice treaty right here. There's a historian word for you. The armistice treaty, the armistice press release. So what happened here, in my view, is NXT was not getting that much for TV rights fees in the first 2 years of this deal. Who knows what it was? Maybe it was 0. Maybe it was $10 million a year. Maybe it was $20 million a year. I don't really believe it was much more than that. Small deal. Maybe it was ad revenue share. Who knows? The notion was that maybe they could grow these rights fees. The 2-year deal was coming to an end soon. They had to renegotiate. They renegotiated. We still didn't learn any deals about what this thing was worth, but they renewed their deal for a multi-year renewal, right? Still don't know what it's worth. Stock price didn't react at all. We had people speculating. We had stock analysts and Dave Meltzer speculating that maybe this deal /reporting /estimating that this deal was worth $50 million a year, maybe $100 million a year. It cannot be worth nearly that much. That's on the size of what WWE's biggest international deal is worth. $50 million a year is the value of the India TV rights deal for Raw and SmackDown for Sony. Something that the stock market certainly would react to. They did not move a muscle in reaction to this. Somebody asked Kristina Salen on the earnings call that followed, should we think about this new NXT TV rights deal, that this has an effect on EBITDA, that is profit? She said, no, it didn't make any difference. We're thrilled with our deal with NBC Universal, but it doesn't really have any effect on profit. Meaning that this either was such a small deal to begin with that whatever change we made to it didn't really matter that much, didn't really change our overall financial picture, or it was a downgrade or whatever. This is not a big money deal. So what happened here? Yes, we all know that Triple H failed to win the Wednesday Night War, and now he's been sort of morally exiled or whatever. What really happened here, in my view, NXT was supposed to win the Wednesday Night War, subdue AEW, failed to do that, but it was also supposed to attract big money. It did not do that. The new deal had to be renegotiated. It did not do that. And Vince McMahon had to say, well, you didn't beat AEW. You didn't attract big TV rights money. You were doing this wrestling division with all your indie guys. I was tolerating it for that long because I thought maybe you could beat AEW. Maybe you could could draw some damn money, but you didn't do either of those. So therefore, it's time for 2.0. And I don't know. Really, a lot of the big stories of 2021 kind of do center around NXT. So, yeah, I don't know. We've got it on the screen here, and I had to make the text pretty small because there's 79 wrestlers this year. At least maybe we missed some here. 79 wrestlers who were released from WWE in the year of 2021. I don't know that we need to list all of them. But yeah, we can go through we can go through the timeline here if you like.
Yeah, I mean, I just think like the biggest, in January it was just something like Lars Sullivan. February was Big Show, Steve Cutler. March 21st was Andrade, but April was, I think, the first big one, and the most notable on those April releases was probably Chelsea Green, Mickie James, Samoa Joe. In May, we had some releases mostly from the NXT roster. June 2nd, big name releases including Aleister Black, Braun Strowman, Ruby Riott, Lana, and Buddy Murphy. Then June 25th, another mass release, a lot of talent that were part of the 205 Live show, including Anthony Green and Kurt Stallion, and Anthony was known as August Gray, Tony Nese, Arya Daivari, but Fandango and Tyler Breeze were also released in that. July 31st, which might be the biggest one of the year, probably Bray Wyatt. August 2nd, Ric Flair. August 6th, big group releases, mostly NXT talent, including Bobby Fish and Mercedes Martinez and more. November 4th, which this is what happened while the the earnings call was going on.
Right after the earnings call.
Right after, yeah. And this included Eva Marie, Nia Jax, Keith Lee, Mia Yim, Karrion Kross, among others, Scarlett Bordeaux. And then November 19th, we have more releases. Isaiah Swerve Scott and John Morrison were probably the biggest names out of that, as well as Tegan Knox. And then just recently, December 9th, Jeff Hardy.
Yes. The biggest surprises here to me: Braun Strowman, Bray Wyatt, Nia Jax. Jeff Hardy was kind of a surprise, but considering Jeff Hardy's rocky past with the WWE, it's not that big of a surprise. Samoa Joe is one name on here who was re-signed later in the year. That's worth mentioning, I suppose. Became NXT champion, and then the NXT 2.0 launch happened, and mysteriously he vacated the title. And I don't know what Samoa Joe's status is with the company. He's clearly doing something. He's doing something in terms of being a trainer or scout or something. I see him in pictures sitting at a table with William Regal and other executives sort of evaluating talent. So he's clearly got some position, but he seems, my impression was that he was a Triple H guy and definitely not a Vince guy. Mm-hmm. But yeah. So yes. April 15th, WWE released 10 people. May 20th. So this is all following that the announcement of that new deal with NXT, probably a zero gain deal, or at least a disappointing deal, or whatever. They released 10 wrestlers. A month later, they released 6 developmental wrestlers. A few weeks later, they released six main roster wrestlers, including Braun Strowman. July 1st, according to PW Insider, Vince McMahon, along with his deputies, Nick Khan, Bruce Pritchard, John Laurinaitis, they visit the WWE Performance Center. I don't really have details about what happened there, but clearly there was something happening there. Vince apparently does not visit the WWE Performance Center regularly, so this was an exceptional situation. Anyway, moving on. Later that month, at the end of the month, they released Bray Wyatt. On August 6th, they released 12 developmental wrestlers. And then September 8th, WWE puts out a press release disclosing that Executive Vice President of Global Strategy and Development, Paul Levesque, suffered a cardiac event. Appeared to have some sort of heart issue. We don't know. We've seen Paul Levesque walk in a I think it's like a TikTok video walking through the new headquarters. So he's still around, still employed, still working, but he had some sort of health issue. And then on September 14th, we had heard during an interview that Nick Khan did with Ariel Helwani right before SummerSlam that NXT was going to be relaunched, whatever that meant. And we would come to learn that on September 14th, NXT 2.0 with the performance, full sale. The full sale era is now in the past, and they're taping NXT right in the Performance Center, which probably makes sense from a financial standpoint. Why pay money to be at Full Sail when you have this facility that you're maintaining anyway? Run TV right out of there, paint the walls white, everything. No more Wolfenstein NXT, no more black and gold, no more Harley Davidson look, no more Karrion Kross era. Now we are in the Nickelodeon GAC era of NXT with Braun Breaker. And that drew some decent ratings for the first 2 weeks. Ratings went up a bit, but ratings are now doing among their lowest total viewership and key demo viewership in the history of NXT on the network in recent weeks. Although, granted, I'll grant you that NXT did have to go head-to-head with some NFL football this week, but it did similar numbers in the weeks before. They released a slew of wrestlers in November, as you already mentioned. You sort of highlighted through who they were releasing. And then on December 2nd, WWE announces an NIL program, which throughout college sports is known as the Name, Image, and Likeness Program. But in WWE, it will forever be known as Next in Line.
Next in Line.
I had to think for a second. Yes, Next in Line, where they've announced their first set of signees, which we talked about last week. Before those were even announced, though, they signed Gable Steveson in a similar deal, the Olympic gold medalist. So a total revamping of not just what NXT is as a television program, but a revamping of how they recruit talent, what they value in talent. No more indie wrestlers, although you did point out to me, WWE did just do a trial with a number of performers, talent who have wrestling experience. So my speculation that they would have no more interest in people with actual wrestling background, perhaps too strong. So maybe they will be signing some people who fit their criteria or whatever, fit their vision, who have wrestling experience, but more of a focus on people who have an athletic background, people who are under 30, maybe even under 25, more of a focus on tall people. I mean, Vince understandably doesn't want all these short people coming up to his program. I mean, it's been proven time and time again that short people don't draw money, or at least Vince doesn't like them. So, why continue to hire these people and allow them to be in prominent positions when you can have people like Braun Strowman, who basically didn't do much of anything, at least on television in NXT, and just bring him right to TV. But I think there really is something to that in terms of Vince McMahon's psychology, is that look, I think Braun Strowman, almost Babatunde, he's with Apollo Crews. What's his name? Commander Aziz. Commander Aziz.
Yeah, Aziz. Yep. Yeah, Aziz. Yeah.
These people who are very tall, who Vince probably looks at and goes, "God damn, he's so tall, and I can do something with this guy." And what benefits these people, I think, and perhaps way more complicated than this. Somebody who knows more about this and is actually in the weeds could correct me. They're not products of Triple H's NXT. Vince gets to have all the credit. I made him. And I think that's really important. And now I think there'll be this makes sense to do what they're doing if Vince is this immovable object, which he is. This fits more of what Vince wants and what Vince's proclivities are, even though they don't reflect what the market needs, wants. But he's going to project his taste onto the market, and that's the way it's going to be for as long as he's alive.
Yep. We're about to have the singles run of Omos, and I think the biggest thing with that is he's somebody that
he's tall. Oh my God, he's so tall.
Never showed up on an NXT TV show.
God, but he's tall. Have you seen how tall he is? Oh. And you put him next to that Pitbull AJ Styles. Oh, he looks even taller. In any event.
Oh, this might have been your best year for Vince McMahon impressions. But as we wrap up, we want to move on to Google Trends, Brandon.
Just quickly, some thoughts, which admittedly I will be relying heavily on Google Trends to support these opinions. Who are the big winners and losers? People will freak out if I say loser, but so, I mean, Ring of Honor. We got just a couple logos here on a few logos on the screen. Just want to talk briefly about some companies who gained in terms of their buzz, their trajectory, their interest among consumers. Okay, that's basically what I want to say. Who gained and who lost interest among consumers. One way that we can test to see for some idea of what's happening there, interest among consumers, is to look at Google Trends. And what I've got on the screen right now are the year-over-year changes in web search in the United States for some, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wrestling brands. AEW, Impact, New Japan, GCW, MLW, NWA, Ring of Honor, Stardom, and WWE. So it's not worldwide. This is US, and we will look at Japan in a moment to isolate Japanese companies. But who gained in web search year over year in 2021? This is through November, looking at the year prior, because December is not finished yet. We'll look at December in a few days here when the year is over. But AEW up 31%. GCW more than doubling. MLW up 87%. Now, granted, that's up from a year where they didn't do much in 2020, but they are up even from the year before that, it looks like. I think that's how the math works out here. Ring of Honor up 14%, probably just because they made news. Stardom is actually down 4% from last year, but they're probably boosted by a lot of searches happening related to the death of Hana Kimura. Impact, essentially unchanged, down 3%. New Japan, essentially unchanged, down 3%, after 2 consecutive years where they were down by a lot, 25% and down 36%. WWE down 19% for the second year in a row. These are tea leaves. I will now read them. Who gained in momentum in this year? On a very small scale, relative to the others, GCW. MLW broke ground on a lot of media platforms. I'm not all that optimistic about MLW's future, considering what happened with the ratings and the performance and the ratings on Vice, where they did not do better than what usually airs in that time slot after Dark Side of the Ring, on the one instance that they were on Vice. We'll see what happens in the future for them. Who else gained? That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it. I'm reading the tea leaves here. Who lost momentum? It's not who lost profit. Lord knows, W is more profitable than ever. They're going to be more profitable than ever when they announce their Q4 and full year 2021 earnings report, probably in early February or late January. More profitable than ever this year. They'll be more profitable than that year following, probably. But WWE, consumer interest, WWE lost a little bit. Maybe quite a bit. Ring of Honor, I think that this positive delta that we've got for Ring of Honor and Google Web Search is driven by the news of Ring of Honor's demise. And a little bit in terms of gain from the prior year, because the pandemic was just almost a complete downtime for them. New Japan continues to not repair itself in terms of the ground that they lost in trying to be a global brand. So let's look at, since we're talking about New Japan, let's look at just Japan web search for New Japan, Stardom, All Japan, DDT, Dragon Gate, all one word, Dragon Gate, and Noah. Who's up here more than anybody is Stardom for the third straight year. Stardom continues to gain ground as a brand that people are searching for, doing related searches. Remember, Google Trends is not just, I'm not just testing how much people are searching for example, Stardom, but Google Trends puts this bucket of related search terms together that in its algorithmic wisdom, it thinks are related. So Stardom continues to be a strengthening brand in my view. I don't know about finances. That's another story. But New Japan is up in Japan 5% from last year, a year in 2020 when it was down 14%. So I think my read is that New Japan is considering the pandemic happened, is pretty much flat. In the United States, it's dropped tremendously. All Japan, DDT, Dragon Gate are all down by double digits. Noah is up 11%. So Noah strengthening a bit. New Japan flat. The others down. That is All Japan, DDT, Dragon Gate down. And Stardom up. So the winners. AEW. GCW. Maybe MLW. Stardom. A little bit Noah. Relative to where they were in recent years. Who's lost momentum in this year? Don't at me. Not in finances. But WWE has lost some consumer momentum in this year. Still, yes, I guess there's momentum still towers above everybody else. They can't even see everybody else down there. They're so big. I know. But anyway, who lost momentum? WWE, Ring of Honor. In the United States, New Japan continues to not regain the momentum that it lost. Impact's flat. Impact's ratings have not been great lately. And apparently New Japan, DDT, and Dragon Gate, although I defer to the greater experts of Japanese pro wrestling on that. So, there's that.
All right, and we're going to move on, and I have a question for you, Brandon.
Okay. We did have a super chat. Should we mention that real quick now that we did Tim,
yeah,
I believe.
If you want, yes.
Tim, I'll read it. I'll read it because it denigrates you. Tim B. contributes generously a $5 super chat. He says, I'll use the super chat feature, not because Gullo said, but because I like Brandon. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Tim. Thank you very much for your super chat.
Merry Christmas, Tim. I will say Merry Christmas as well. But I do have a question for you, Brandon.
Okay.
My question is, what can the wrestling business learn from the success of Yellowstone and Succession?
So, what we have here. So you've not been watching Succession, I heard.
No, I have friends that have. I will get to it. There's only so much time in the Gulloverse.
So what can we learn from Succession? Yellowstone will surprise you to say I'm not going to go over how the characters of Succession may reflect certain characters in the pro wrestling business. That one can certainly imagine how they do, though. But you have been watching Yellowstone, Chris Gullo. Is that not correct?
I just started watching a few episodes in the first season, but I started watching Yellowstone because I have interest in the prequels, so I figured I'd watch the main series.
Without looking at the next slide, which I don't know if you already have looked at, which program do you think does better TV ratings?
I would say Yellowstone because it would be in more homes.
Okay. Why is it? Oh, yeah, that's true. True. Very true.
Because HBO is a premier service.
Yes. Okay. So what we have here, we're going to look. We've got the entire P1849 history, courtesy of Showbiz Daily, for the ratings for Yellowstone and for Succession. Which program do you hear more about, though?
Probably Succession.
Mm-hmm. I hear way more about
Especially
Succession.
on Twitter.
I didn't know what Yellowstone was until like a month ago. But anyway, 18 to 49. We're not even gonna mess with P2 Plus here. We'll just look at 18 to 49 because maybe 18 to 49 is more favorable to Succession. It would be my presumption. I haven't looked, but anyway, Yellowstone primarily airs on Paramount, which is the former Spike network, and of course Succession airs primarily on HBO. And Yellowstone, just let's say this past December 19th, did a 1.36 demo rating. What does Raw do for a reference?
Like a 0.38-ish.
Right.
I think was their last.
Yeah. What does SmackDown do for a demo rating, roughly, lately?
0.48, right?
0.5. Some. I think this year they've done some 0.6s, 0.60. Paramount, Yellowstone, just on Paramount, did a 1.36. Let's put that in real viewers. The universe is about 1305. So 1305 times 1.36. 1.8 million viewers in the demo.
Wow.
How many viewers in the demo does Dynamite do, or Raw, or SmackDown? Do you know?
It would be roughly what, like 400,000 ish, 500.
Raw does
Like
Raw.
for
Raw is doing its all-time lows here, but Raw does a little over 500,000 in the demo.
Yeah.
Dynamite usually does under 500,000. So SmackDown does better than Raw even. So maybe like 600, 700,000 in the demo. Yellowstone, 1.8 million viewers for the most recent episode of Yellowstone. Now, if we look at something's happening here, though, that I'm not really aware of, but that Yellowstone is apparently being simulcast on the CMT network in addition to Paramount, and sometimes they're also simulcast on Pop. What looks to be the season premiere was simulcast not just on Paramount, but on CMT and Pop, the former home of Impact, and on TV Land, where it did a grand total 1.84 demo rating, 2.4 million viewers just in the demo for its premiere. What does Succession do in the demo? What does Succession do in the demo, Chris Gull? Give me one of those numbers on the chart for one.
Yeah, I mean, most recently they're doing it around 0.12. Recently,
those are some NXT numbers. Those are some NXT numbers right there. Is what those are. Now, I know everybody's probably yelling at their podcast speaker right now. But what about the streaming? I will grant you that. I would imagine that HBO Max is a much more subscribed to service than Paramount Plus or wherever you can watch Yellowstone on streaming. I imagine that the percentage of people who are watching Succession through streaming is greater than the percentage of people who are watching Yellowstone through streaming. Even taking that into consideration, though, the live same day viewership in the demo is how many times greater is Yellowstone than Succession here. Let's take 1.53, which is what it did on the 19th, and divide that by 0.13. That's almost 12 times. 12 times the viewership in the demo. Yellowstone is being watched. Yes.
Just real quick about Yellowstone. You know where you can catch up on previous seasons? And I should know this because I've been doing it. Peacock. I forgot it was on Peacock.
Okay. So what does any of this have to do with pro wrestling? I'll get to it in a moment. So a conclusion here is that Yellowstone is massively watched. Succession does NXT numbers. And but I hear way more about Succession. I only learned very recently what Yellowstone even was. And it's not like this is just a program that just debuted this year in 2021, Yellowstone, and wasn't doing pretty good ratings in the years before. In 2020, they were not doing as strong ratings as they're doing now, but they were still blowing away what Succession was over the same time period by multiples. But if you let's look at the Google Trends though. So maybe streaming activity is sort of reflected in the Google Trends, but no, the Google Trends are still, Yellowstone's way above Succession in the Google Trends in the United States. This is worldwide actually. United States is similar though. I looked at it, and if you look at the regional breakdown, if we isolate this by city, where do you see superior interest in Succession rather than Yellowstone?
I mean, the Northeast is very Succession heavy.
So the East Coast.
Yep.
And where do you see a couple other blue dots for Succession?
Seattle.
And
Be a blue dot. And Los Angeles. Is that what that? It's like right under the red.
San Francisco. San Francisco.
Okay.
So this is a coastal thing that on the East Coast, certainly, according to this data, and on the West Coast somewhat, there's superior interest in Succession over Yellowstone. And that probably results in this disproportionate media coverage for Succession. What does this have anything to do with wrestling, as maybe you're guessing? In some ways, there's an analog here for Yellowstone being kind of like WWE and Succession being kind of like AEW in terms of our media world. By media, I mean like news media and the things that we're doing here. What I see in terms of our numbers and what I think other podcasts and other wrestling media see in terms of their numbers is not that much interest in WWE, more interest in AEW. When there's a big AEW rating, what are the most watched YouTube videos of live TV ratings talk? It's when AEW edged out Raw in the demo live same day, and the other time that it edged out Raw in the demo live same day. This past live TV ratings talk was the most watched in a long time, coinciding with when AEW hit 1 million viewers for the first time since early October. So there's this segment of people who are disproportionately interested in this thing relative to the population generally. WWE still beats. I mean, it's a far more comparable margin in the key demo, AEW and NWR versus Yellowstone and Succession. WWE is not 12 times higher than Dynamite in the demo. Even if we compare SmackDown to Rampage, like perhaps WWE executives want us to. Well, maybe that's maybe 3 times. SmackDown's probably tripling Rampage in the demo. Certainly not 12 times or 10 times or anything like that. So there is a phenomenon that we see reflected in other more general entertainment media worlds. In that, I mean, look at the center of the country or average people. The typical person is far more interested in Yellowstone than they are in Succession. Even though Succession will perhaps win more awards at big fancy award shows, Succession will get more pieces written about it in the New Yorker than Yellowstone will. When the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Awards come out, you know who's going to sweep them? And you know who's not? Yeah. Tony Khan probably wins Promoter of the Year again. Maybe AEW wins Promotion of the Year. You know who's going to win Worst Wrestling Program of the Year? Probably Raw or something. So it's just there is one of the big things that I think we wrestle with, no pun intended here, is like, and I think we lack the vocabulary to deal with it, because the common nomenclature is the hardcore fan and the casual fan, and that's so insufficient for what we're trying to talk about. There is the more general fan, or there's hardcore fans on Twitter of WWE. They're yelling at me all the time. They're certainly not hardcore. They're hardcore as it gets. But there's clearly, if you look at the web search, you look at the TV viewership, there's still superior interest in WWE over AEW, even though in our audience world, there's more interest in AEW. So I don't know. Did we learn something there? I don't know. I hope so.
It was a very adventurous comparison, and it all makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
The way your brain ticks, Brandon, it's very interesting. I would have never thought, hey, let's compare these two shows,
To be fair, I should bring up that they didn't compare it to WWE and AEW, but this was brought up, I think, on Peter Kafka's podcast, Recode Media, where they were pointing out that there's this lack of, there's this disproportionate coverage, media attention given to Succession, while Yellowstone is just crushing it in the ratings.
All right. Because of the holiday,
give me some fast affiliates. Fast affiliates. What we got?
Yes, we got nothing because of the holiday.
What about Fast Nationals? Anybody report the Fast
Nothing
Nationals?
because of the holiday.
Oh, well, actually, I'm not sure what's happening here. Yeah, there's going to be some holiday delays for Nielsen for ratings coming out. I'm not sure. I have to write a report about what exactly the delays are, because I've been given some information about that. It probably wouldn't be very helpful for me to say this in audio because it'll go right through everybody's one ear and out the other. So I'll write a report for that. I mean, it's on Showbuzz. Showbuzz has already reported it as well. But basically, the Friday ratings will be available on Tuesday morning. So SmackDown and Rampage we will get on Tuesday morning. I guess I am going to say it then. Raw we will get on Wednesday morning. The Monday ratings. NXT, the Tuesday ratings, we will get on Wednesday afternoon. So then we will be back to the regular schedule by Wednesday afternoon. And then Dynamite we will get on Thursday afternoon as usual. But then we got to deal with New Year's holiday. And I didn't realize this, that SmackDown is airing on FS1 on Friday. That will be out on Tuesday. Rampage, also a Friday program, will be out on Tuesday morning. Those are both Tuesday morning. And then Raw will be delivered Wednesday morning. And then normal delivery resumes in the new year on Wednesday afternoon for the Tuesday ratings, including NXT. So there's that. Yeah.
That has to be a college football game if they're being preempted.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, no, it'll be New Year's Eve. So it'd be the New Year's Eve bash or whatever they air.
Right.
That's actually, yeah, that'd probably be what's preempting. Yeah. So, real quick, YouTube, if you just want to kind of break down the last 7 days on YouTube.
Oh my God, we've been going for 2 hours here. This is the longest.
Yes.
This is the longest ever in the tenure of Chris Gull.
We still got stuff to cover. Well, it's the end of a year. We're wrapping up a year.
All right, quickly, YouTube. I have reconfigured the way in which I capture this data. So you may have noticed in the past we have been talking about let's count the views after 16 hours. Now we are counting the YouTube views after 24 hours. And now I am not just counting WWE and AEW. Maybe leaving out New Japan or NWA or MLW. Maybe they would rank highly here. We are including all these Japanese companies. I think I'm including CMLL. AAA is still geo-blocked in the United States because of their legal dispute with Lucha FMV, apparently. But we're looking at all sorts of Japanese companies here, including New Japan, both global and their Japanese channel, Noah, DDT, Dragon Gate, etc., etc. Suffice to say, in the top 25, it's still only WWE and AEW. The most watched video after 24 hours in the last 7 days. Consider this beta. Maybe I'm leaving something out. Once we get a little bit more time behind us, I'll be more confident in saying that, yes, this is the total picture. I'm fairly confident that this is, though. But anyway, number one video after 7 days this week was the top 10 moments of Raw with over 800,000 views. The number 2 moment was, goddamn, almost, he's so tall. And AJ Styles, their team descending into bedlam on Raw after they lost to the Mysterios. Also over 800,000 viewers, but number 2. Number 3, the first AEW video on the list. There's no disputing that debut. Get it? That's the video debuting, the video highlighting the debut of Kyle O'Reilly, former member of the Undisputed Era, along with Adam Cole and Bobby Fish. And then we have Christmas-themed stipulation matches, a WWE playlist, Big E and Bobby Lashley versus Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens from Raw. That did over 600,000 views after 24 hours. Number 6, another AEW video. This might be the coolest entrance of 2021. I have no idea what that is. That's from Dynamite. What would that be? You're going to have to Google, and we unfortunately can't copy it. This might be the coolest entrance AEW YouTube. And then, this is the entrance of CM Punk and Sting with the face paint on.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. They leave a lot of questions in their video titles. I have no idea if that's a good thing or a bad thing for their SEO. Paul Heyman ponders his career is next with over 500,000 views. Liv Morgan gives Becky Lynch a kendo stick and dares her to enter the ring. So this is the actual segment from Raw, not the much lauded pre-tape segment. Have you seen that, by the way? They're
Yes.
Yeah. Enough said about that.
Yeah.
And then relive the exciting career of Paul Heyman from SmackDown with over 500,000. And then just under 500,000, number 10's last one we'll list. Miz and Maurice execute a plan to take down Edge on the cutting edge. Yeah, and I think I have the Excel spreadsheet open here. We have to scroll down. I'll put it on the screen. We have to. So when do we finally get to the point where we're looking at videos that are not WWE or AEW videos? Number 70, we finally get a New Japan video with, after 24 hours, 49,000 views. And I'm not sure what that is. It's in Japanese. What does it say? Shichu Shun. I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's a fighting talk, something from Fighting Talk for New Japan. These are only videos that are posted this week and after 24 hours. We do get some Noah in here at number 76. We get some Impact finally at number 97. Yeah. So these lists, the most watched YouTube views as far as stuff that is newly posted, is overwhelmingly dominated by WWE and AEW. And most of that is WWE, with some AEW. You know, the number 3 video this week and the number 6 video this week were AEW. Something else I want to follow is we can look at Social Blade, which counts the total video view count that's available, that's viewable on your About page of your YouTube channel. That counts all of the video views that you gained across your channel. And what I want to look at, and we're not really prepared to look at it this week, is, you know, of all of these views that they gained for their new content this week, what percentage of all of their gained views is new content? It appears to be a pretty small percentage for WWE, just because they have this massive library of YouTube videos, that's always collecting additional views and making them some YouTube money. So that's something we'll look at in the future, because, you know, people want me to point out that, yes, WWE is doing multiple times more YouTube views than AEW is in any given period of time, although they are much closer when you only look at the newest content.
All right. And we're going to move into our last story of the show. Yeah, and regarding Pro Wrestling Tees, and this report was from our colleague John Pollock at postwrestling.com. Pro Wrestling Tees had a security breach recently and sent out a physical letter to certain customers informing them of the breach. The letter was posted online, noting that PWTs was notified on November 1st by law enforcement that a small portion of the customers' credit card numbers had been compromised. After an investigation, the company believes it was a malware virus that was the source of the breach and has been removed from its system. The letter posted was signed by PWT's owner Ryan Barkin, and that also included information on obtaining identity theft protection that they are offering. It also stated the following in the letter posted online. Again, at this time, there's no evidence that your information has been misused. However, we encourage you to take full advantage of this service offering. There has been criticism of the company not addressing this breach through their social channels, and there's no announcement of the breach on its Twitter account. We were informed by one person at the company that the IDX number attached or email attached to those letters are legally the only people who can talk about the security breach due to laws when it comes to cybersecurity. A search of the PWT's breach on Twitter brings a lot of results from users complaining about the handling of the breach, with additional questions given PWT's involvement with AEW merchandise and why they didn't contact people quicker electronically than with physical letters. There's also a Twitter thread with users noting amounts that appeared in their credit cards or purchases they did not make.
Yes. Do you have a Pro Wrestling Tees store, Chris Gallo?
I don't. I got denied a while back, and I didn't try again.
You got denied?
Yeah, I sent out stuff, and I just never hear back. Maybe because I was applying as a ring announcer. I know wrestlers pretty much get good to go. So, this was a year.
So you would
ago,
like to have. You would like to have a store. You would have liked to have a store.
Okay. Yeah.
I've personally, I've never applied. We are working on some merchandise that will be released through whatever Post Wrestling uses, and they do not use Pro Wrestling Tees. I believe they're using Shopify, something like that. But anyway, just to be upfront, we don't have any interest in financial interest in Pro Wrestling Tees. But yeah, this is it's something that AEW is very involved in. AEW's merchandise, best I can tell, is like completely run by Pro Wrestling Tees. The shop, it's not W Shop, right? So it's Shop AEW. Shop AEW is essentially a Pro Wrestling Tees store. We're missing the Bills game right now. But anyway, Belichick, I'm being texted. Belichick it has full sleeves right now on the sideline.
Oh wow.
But anyway, yeah, Pro Wrestling Tees learned about this apparently in early November. Did not email or otherwise electronically, digitally notify its customers, but through mail notified its customers. Have you bought things from PWT, Scullo?
Yeah. I was a subscriber to the Pro Wrestling Great for a while.
What, like a long time ago, or when?
I most recently probably stopped getting it early 2021. So
yeah. So who knows if your data was compromised? You didn't receive
get a letter.
You didn't receive a letter, no. So yeah, I wonder if they calculated, and I'm sure there's legal aspects to this, but I wonder if they calculated that well, if we email everyone, everyone's going to screenshot their email and put it on Twitter, and we have a very online customer base, and we don't want to endure that heat. But as difficult as it is, it's always, in basically every situation, it's always better to be upfront and transparent about whatever problems are going on rather than to wait and piss people off later. So.
All right. So with that is another edition, a long but fun edition of Wrestlenomics Radio.
Next week will be a shorter program, hopefully. Thank you all for listening, and if you're watching on YouTube, if you are watching on YouTube, hit the thumbs up. That really helps us. If you think more people should watch Wrestlenomics, I do. Hit the thumbs up. That helps people discover our podcast. Share it with people. That helps as well. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Also on the YouTube channel, there is a live TV ratings talk every Thursday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Wrestlenomics YouTube channel. Available to watch immediately after. Patrons get access to the audio immediately after if you find it easier as a thing to listen to instead of watch on YouTube. You can also go to the Post Wrestling Discord, and there is a Wrestlenomics channel there where you can discuss with others the wrestling business. And as always, the Wrestlenomics Radio podcast is distributed in cooperation with our friends at Post Wrestling, and who we've just joined. When was it? November 1st, I think, is when we made the announcement. And they've been great partners. They've been everything I could have ever imagined and more, in terms of just helping us reach more people than ever, helping us with merchandise, which is coming up next year. It's been great. And I learned, so we were on the Post Wrestling Christmas show, which is this something like 5-hour podcast with all these people who are related to the Post Wrestling family, coming in and out and talking with John and Wai. And there's a jingle contest as part of that. And now the long game of Wrestlenomics moving to Post Wrestling can finally be revealed. Is that now we've got Brad the archivist from the Post Wrestling world, involved here, and hopefully he's counting whatever my verbal tics are, how many times I say there's that and things of that nature, in any event, and so forth, and all the other Vince McMahonisms that I have internalized. But Brad the archivist made a Wrestlenomics themed Christmas jingle, which we will play for the closing credits today. So that was wonderful. What plugs do you have, Priscilla?
This Wednesday will be the newest episode of Rediscovering the Indies. You can check it out on RTI Pod on Twitter, Rediscovering Indies, Instagram, and Facebook for links on that. But the Ring of Honor CZW feud, which I'll be recording this evening. So I'm going to be doing a lot of podcasting.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Okay, you can, if you're not already a subscriber, you can subscribe to Wrestlenomics on Patreon at patreon.com/Wrestlenomics. You get access to my TV ratings reports that come out nearly every weekday. You get access to the giant Wrestlenomics spreadsheet that has over 20,000 data points, TV viewership data across various demos going all the way back to late 2014. You get other content as well. Like I mentioned, the audio-only versions of the live TV ratings talk. You never know what else is going to be out there. We're reporting quarter hours. If you want to know quarter hours across all the various demos, those are usually reported by me too, at least for AEW programs and other W programs when I get them. You can follow us on Twitter at Brandon Thurston, at Chris Gullo, at RTI Pod, and at Wrestlenomics. Thanks to everybody for supporting Wrestlenomics in 2021. It's been I think we've grown a lot in this year. We've added Chris Gullo here. Chris Gullo, by the way, if you didn't notice at the very beginning of this program, big Wrestlenomics moment for him. Where I am in many ways, I realize am like Vince McMahon in some frightening ways, in that I have to control everything. It's all about control. I am relinquishing some control here, where I let Chris Gullo do the roll call of topics today. I think that went well, and we will let him do that again in the future. So,
in the future,
yes. So, thanks to everybody for supporting and listening. Thanks to Chris Gullo for joining the Wrestlenomics universe permanently in 2021. Thanks to Jason Umperser for writing our articles on Wrestlenomics.com. Thanks to Phil Chertok for giving me a lot of technical assistance and advice this year. And and thanks to everyone at Post Wrestling, including John Pollock and Wei Ting, for helping us reach more people than ever. So we will talk to everyone next time. Bye.
You boys ready to sing about pro wrestling business?
You know we are. Yeah, let's sing it now.
Okay, John?
Okay.
Okay, Chris?
Okay.
Okay, Brandon? Brandon? Brandon!
Okay. Dynamite rating time is here. Weekly numbers to ignore or cheer. They've been good, but that can't last. Hurry, right, Theo, hurry fast. Want a share of the key demo? Tony will tweet out a thank you memo. The viewership spreadsheet, it's a weekly update. Oh, Wrestlenomics explains it great.
John, good use of the DJ Jopo voice.
Naturally.
Chris, great use of that ring announcer voice. Brandon, use that wrestling promo voice. Brandon? Brandon!
Okay. The WWE earning call is near. Time for the profit of this quarterly year. Revenue is up from when reported last, but they'll make more cuts fast. Nick Khan announces a 10-year agreement for a large-scale international event. WWE competes with your sleep state. Oh, Wrestlenomics explains it great.